and a very, very warm welcome to the Power Hour. We are back. We're on the eve of MTD, well, kind of. And we're here to bring you kind of a moment of calm and an element of reassurance that everything is going to be just okay. I did want a kind of ominous, foreboding sound effect before we started this, but with the state of the world at the moment, you can't actually get hold of one. So we couldn't do that, which was a shame. But we are 2 weeks away from the joys of obligatory digital record keeping and quarterly filings and probably some upset customers as well. And we do know that there's different states of readiness across the country. Different accountants have gone really far. Some have not really put together a fully resourced, costed plan. Some have, and we've all spoken to some who have said, well, we've spoken to some of our customers, but only if they've asked about it. So it's looking. I think we're going to be okay. But indeed, a colleague of mine, of my wife actually, was told by her accountant just in January that MTD was being cancelled and they weren't going to do it. And that was only in January, which sent a chill through my waters, I won't lie. But there is still time. If you are not fully sorted, there is still time. Nothing gets filed until July, and we're here to go through the kind of pre-flight checklist with you. I'm joined by the ever fantastic Nick Moss, our head of professional services. Thanks again, Nick, for coming along. You're going to be walking us through some of your new discoveries, as well as the Engager TaxCalc software. But also the twin engines of what I've described as the ragtag army come political pressure group that is MTD Therapy. We've got little Bobby Milstead, and so Robin really doesn't want me to call her that, but I can't help it. And Tom, the beardy guy, Bickle. Hello, Tom. Thank you guys for coming along. How's it been? You've been busy lately. What's been going on?
Super busy for us. We spent last week at Fab and we had a fab time meeting lots of our members for the first time, meeting each other for the first time. So that's, yeah, very busy. And
I can't believe that you hadn't met. That's incredible. After all of this, you hadn't actually physically been in the same room. That is incredible.
Till last week. It was good week.
And we had a dinner. That was very nice.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Social. Yeah, thank you, TaxCalc, for coming. It was fantastic.
Really, really good night. Your guys are truly wonderful people to a man. So we are going to quickly today, we're going to go through some of the basics about MTD. We're going to talk about some of the loopholes, things that are really not clear that they've become apparent that they're not really clear. We're going to be talking about some of the latest discoveries that we've made. We're going to be talking about some of the things around packaging and pricing that we know some people are struggling with. And we're going to have a quick review of the software options that you've got, in particular, the MTD filing, which is available both for a professional, for an accountant, but also for your clients to use directly as well. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. Before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. As you know, if you have not been to one of these before, where have you been? But if you haven't been to one before, the chat is for everyone to speak through. The Q&A is only we will see those questions. So if you've got a burning question that you want us to see, that's probably the best place to use it. And the polls are crucial to this. We'll be putting a poll live very shortly because we want to know what your responses are to some of these points. And I'm going to put a poll live very soon if I can open up my session, because I would like to know how you are getting along. So the question that I'm going to put, so if you go to the polls in the bottom left-hand corner, that's just gone live. If you could put in what you have achieved so far. So there's a number of statements, and if you agree with those statements, please indicate that you agree with that statement. and I'd like to see how people are getting along. And in particular, we've got two people who are really excited and can't wait to get started.
I like that question.
I
Didn't click
don't know
that
if anyone
box.
would go for that one.
You've got some takers on that one.
So most people, well, still only we've got 75. So most people seem to be saying that they know which clients will be included. But when we get down to a clear and established finalization process, that's looking a lot lighter. So I think, Nick, you've got some points to make about that a little bit later. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you for doing that. And by the way, there will be a recording, so you are more than welcome to not take notes, and then we will send a recording out to this afterwards. So, people asking about Georgina. I don't know where they go if you're viewing on an iPad, but we'll take your poll later. So people didn't see the poll? It's in the bottom left-hand corner if you didn't see the poll. Okay, and we are also going to have the quiz, the traditional Power Hour quiz. We have got more hats up for grabs, and if you won a quiz, if you won a hat in the last quiz in February, we've only just got back in the office. Your hat will be sent to you very shortly. But quiz question. So I would like you to have a stab at, according to HMRC, how many firms going into MTD this year are unrepresented by accountants? Closest bet wins. 2.8 million, says Asif. That's good. That will be interesting. So closest number wins. Just keep going until someone gets vaguely close to it, but there is an official number that HMRC are expecting. And interestingly, the unrepresented are an interesting subject close to our hearts, because Tom and I and Robin are going to be on stage at Accountex on day one, 2:20, and we're going to be discussing, we need to talk about the unrepresented, and we're going to be talking around how people are handling a potential onslaught of new clients. Are they relishing that? Are they turning them away? What can you do to make that process easier? So how are we getting on? Has anyone come close to the number yet? I haven't seen.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah,
go on, Robin.
Yeah, Unis has got it there, 216,000, so 25% of the first.
That is
coming in
pretty much bang on. I can't. So Eunice, if you've got that, you are the winner. Congratulations. If you could, in the question section, just say hi, say that you've won the hat, and please indicate whether you would like a pink one or a black one, and we will make sure that gets sent to you. And give us your address that you would like us to get that sent to you. That would be wonderful. Congratulations. Okay, enough of me. Let's get into what we have learned in the last year. What changes have been made? What loopholes have we discovered? And what isn't clear that we're aware of?
Where to start, Andy?
Where to start?
What we have learned is that MTD land changes almost every single day. So for those of you tuning in that don't know Tom and I already, we run a community called Accountants Therapy, and we have a specific group for MTD conversation, and that conversation has been continual for the last year, with MTD discussion on all sorts of things, from technical points to how to deal with everything in practice. And yeah, if we've learned anything, it's that things change, and that sometimes something that you think may have been built very well and with lots of consultation, let's say, has possibly not been built, or with much consultation or with much clarity. In terms of things we're learning at the moment, the hot topic for me anyway is what we do when we have somebody who is mandated for MTD for April 26 but has ceased all of their qualifying income. So you'll start to hear the more things that you go to at the moment, people talking about this exact situation. And this week, I think my conclusion is that there isn't actually a route built by HMRC to know exactly what the best way to notify that cessation is to HMRC. So you have various different bits of advice coming out. My own experience yesterday was that web chat told me something that Craig Ogilvie had specifically said on stage last week didn't work. So yeah, lots of changes. Tom, how about you? What's the big subject for you at the moment?
I think it's the sign up is the big thing for me, because HMRC have been, in one moment they're saying we will sign you up, if we'll sign your clients up if you don't do it. They haven't really explained the main purpose of why they want us to sign up our clients for MTD as quick as possible, and that is because we're moving from the old OSA over to the ASA, so the clients will be in the new ASA. And when we're migrating that information over, if we are the ones that are registering our clients for MTD, we're in control of that data that's being ported across. So if we see any errors with the surname, if someone's been married or divorced, the address might be incorrect. So you might find some other bits of information that's not correct. You can get it fixed there and then. Whereas when HMRC do eventually move people over to the ASA, which is the Agent Services account, HMRC are just pulling the data over that exists already. So the reason for me to be really keen to get this done with my clients is that I want to make sure I'm checking that info is correct, because I feel like with anything to do with HMRC, if you leave it to their systems, it's going to be 10 times harder to fix it than if I do it from day one. And that's why I think it's important that we get that message across as ourselves to people to say is that's why you need to do it. Have the control over the data that you're putting into the Agent Services account. Don't leave it to HMRC.
Yeah, that's a really good example of one of those ones where if they had just been clear on that straight away, I think most agents would just go, okay, that's reasonable. We want control of the data that's going into the system. I'll get on with it. Whereas because they were a little bit shady about it, that a lot of people felt a little bit disengaged there. So those are the fun things. I can see a few comments on the chat that, if you don't mind, I want to just pick up on the cessation.
I've got some questions too, so I want to start.
Like questions, but on the thought of the cessation side of things, I've seen someone say that they're hearing people say just sign your clients up and then notify the cessation via the ASA. That is one of the routes that's possible, but signing your client up to Making Tax Digital, even if they've ceased, so i.e. even if they're not actually mandated because they've ceased all their qualifying income, means you're signing up that client to the new penalty regime. So that might suit some of your clients, but it's just, you need to be aware of that you're not just doing an admin task, you are legally signing them up to the new penalty regime as part of that that process. And that's kind of what I mean by how it's not very clear, because okay, we're talking to people about this, and other advisors are talking to people about the different routes of notifying cessation, but HMRC hasn't got any particularly clear guidance on this at the moment as to the consequences of each type of action. For example, another way to notify cessation is to ring HMRC. However, at the moment we understand there isn't any letter or anything that comes back if you do that, so there's actually no proof that you've done it at all.
It's just a note on the file, isn't it, is what they're doing at the moment in the MTD team, which I think for most of us as accountants is a little bit anxiety inducing. We want to see that letter, the same as if someone has pulled out of self-assessment, we want to see it in writing. So we did actually approach HMRC to say, can you have a look at this, because we really think it's important that you send a letter out for that audit trail to say we've pulled them out of MTD.
So there's a question there saying, how do you do it then? I'll really quickly go through those because I think it's a really hot topic at the moment. One, you can ring them, but be aware that at the moment there's no kickback off of that. You just have to trust they've actioned your request. Two, you can write to them to notify the cessation, but who knows when they'll write back. They say they will write back, but what are the timeframes? We don't know. Three, you can sign them up on your to Making Tax Digital on your ASA account, but then you're signing them up for the new penalty regime. And you can notify the cessation via that way. There are some people saying that you could submit your 25-26 tax return for that client with the end date on it. As far as I'm aware, that doesn't work. I don't think that the self-assessment system talks to the MTD system in the way we would like it to. That is what HMRC tend to advise you to do, though. Be aware of that on the web chat. They will say that it's fine, submit the tax return early. I don't think that works. Maybe that will change soon. And then web chat is I thought it was an option, but I tried it, and my colleague Lizzie also tried it yesterday, and it didn't work for us. So at the moment, those are your three options.
Okay, so thank you for that. We've got some questions that I'd like to go through. We did say no question is too simple. So we've got a question in, what information is required when setting up the Agent Services account?
Sure. So you need to be an agent to start with. You need to be registered as an agent, and it's information like security information, AML style information. It's nothing interesting, but it's just sort of your boring,
straightforward,
set up an account type information.
And that's really realistically the same for the MTD registration.
So to register your clients for MTD, you have to have an agent services account, which for you is going to involve that sort of AML and personal information of your business. Once you have that ASA account, the agent services account, then you can start signing your clients up for Making Tax Digital. And for that, you need their NI number and their date of birth and their name. And really, when you do the sign up, you also need to know whether they started their business or that income within the last 2 years, and their address. That's it.
Excellent. So Rakesh asks that subcontractors are notoriously bad. I don't know if anyone was aware of this, but they're keeping expenses created at the 11th hour. What would you recommend as the best way to handle this motley crew of clients? So if you've got subbies, what do you do?
I would get, I've got a few subbies, and communication is the absolute key thing for me about making sure that they know what the rules are, how they're going to do it. And for the really simple subbies I've got, I'm just bridging them through TaxCalc, because they don't need elaborate software. They don't need to be keeping full bookkeeping records. It doesn't really mean much to them. They're not interested. It's not going to change how they run their business. So we'll be getting the bank data in through an Excel once a quarter, put it through TaxCalc, done.
And we will be showing you how to do that a little bit later, so you can actually see the process of bridging an Excel spreadsheet straight into HMRC. Ishmael asks, how does VAT MTD work with income tax? Can both be submitted together?
This is one of the most common questions as well. So they can be submitted on the same day if you've got aligned VAT quarter to your MTD quarters, but don't forget your VAT return is non-cumulative, but your MTD return, submission is cumulative. So they're not the same thing. They have different sets of legal requirements behind them as well, different consequences, particularly in the first year of MTD while we have a soft landing. So unfortunately, no, you can't just wrap them up together. They're going to be different reports.
And we're going right back to the early days with a question saying, just really confirming, I think, so our clients are still okay to bring in paperwork and we can just sort it out. They bring in a bag, as long as you do it quarterly.
I know where this has come from. I know I heard about this. There was a software vendor in a webinar recently that was saying that you had to keep a digital link of all the records, and that would only work if you took photographs of every receipt and put it through bookkeeping software. And I was genuinely shocked to hear that bit of misinformation. But yes, that is not what a quarterly update is about. It's not about showing all of the receipts have been photographed. It's not about putting all the emails into the software. It's about creating a digital record, which can be done via spreadsheet or software. It doesn't mean you have to keep every receipt digitally. You can still keep them in paper form.
I've been that conversation comes up repeatedly about that. Okay, so one more. If a client doesn't submit the first 4 quarters and we just do the final deck, which won't be able to pull through any info from the quarters because there's no data to pull through, would the final declaration clear the previous non-compliance? Yeah,
I like that one. I'll take that one. You have to do Q4. You won't be able to do the final declaration without doing a Q4 submission somehow. So whether that's you do it, the client does it, whatever, there has to be a Q4 there that pulls through into the final software. Does it clear the previous obligations? No. Once you've gone past your obligation period, there's no such thing as clearing the previous obligations. When we go live, when we don't have a soft landing, once you're past that declaration period, there will be a penalty point for missing that, whether you go back and you do something about it or not. So if you get that sort of thought of catching up out of your head, then I think it makes it much easier to understand your obligations on MTD, because you're not going to go back and catch up. You're just going to submit the last one according to where you are in the year, and that last one is going to be whichever one has just passed, or worst, your Q4, so that you can do your final declaration.
Awesome. So to be honest, it's quite rare that usually the questions bit is where we can actually focus. There's so much going on in the chat and in the questions. I'm struggling to keep up. So we had some questions about, and we were going to talk about this, and that is the sexy question of exemptions. Now, there are some quite interesting exemptions there. I think Vivian has asked one, elderly clients who could potentially qualify. What do we know about exemptions now? Is there a broad rule of thumb that we can apply?
I've just digging out the guidance actually to chuck it into the chat for people. They did update it very late in January, and it's really important. I think this is for the world of MTD. What you knew 3 months ago has changed, so you've got to keep your finger on the pulse, because the exemptions that existed 3 months ago, they've now been new ones. And I think the most recent one that I was aware of was the averaging for farmers. If anybody has had that on their 24-25 tax return, that
Any
is
type of averaging.
Is any type of averaging.
Yeah, so yeah, applies to creatives as well.
Yeah, so that is something to be keeping an eye on, because that is a postponement, isn't it? That's just a temporary one for one year. So I've just put it in the chat there. Have a look through it. That information is really helpful. And a really good resource as well for checking out exemptions is the ATT website. The work that Emma Rawson does is fantastic. She's really is the leading lady with the exemptions knowledge.
But broadly, with elderly, I mean, are they just digitally excluded, or what do they come under?
It depends on their circumstances. There isn't an age limit. Possibly that makes sense because the revenue can't make, or there can't be a law to say you can't do digital stuff after a particular age. That would be discrimination. So it's really down to the person's circumstances and whether or not it would not be reasonably practical for them to comply with making tax digital. So certainly being of advanced age can be used to illustrate that this person just won't be able to do this. We've seen definitely that there are exemptions coming through. Generally speaking, the ones we've seen in accountants therapy are tied with some kind of health condition at the same time, that makes it very difficult for someone to change their record keeping or to be able to do that digitally. But the news is generally good on exemptions. It doesn't seem like there's too many are being rejected. It seems like there's quite a good rate of return, whether that's because people are being reasonable with those exemption requests at the moment, or whether it's
because there's a lot of stories about there's this guy and he's in his 70s and he's never used a phone and he's just not willing to do it. Are you hearing about those kind of ones getting through, or? I mean, there's no real reason. It's just I'm not going to use a phone and I'm not going to use a computer.
They shouldn't be getting through. So that MTD exemptions are not there for people that just don't want to do it. They're not there for the people that are just refusing. This is Tom's favorite subject, really. They are there for people who can't do it. And as agents, we need to be really trying to whittle that down and make sure that if we're applying for an exemption, it really is because they just can't comply, not because they don't want to. And
timing wise, I think it's important to try and do that sooner rather than later. At the moment, HMRC does have a dedicated MTD team, and all they're doing is answering the agent dedicated MTD line. They are looking at the exemptions. When we've done the freedom of information requests, they seem to be churning through those exemptions very quickly, and I think the percentage of exemptions not accepted is quite low. However, from April, we're not entirely sure what happens with that MTD team. Are they going to go out back into the self-assessment departments? Are they going to focus on the next project that's coming ahead? Are we going to still have the access that we have now? And at the moment, in testing, there's very few, I say very few, there's only, what was it, how many thousand people registered? Robin, was 85,000, I think, were signed up for MTD. 100,000 now. So 15K in a week. We're looking at 800 and something thousand registering in the first year. So the sooner you get those exemption requests in, the sooner they're likely to be dealt with, because the volume is there. If it gets too busy, they're not going to be able to do it quickly.
But it sounds really reasonably positive that they're being quite open to exemptions.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think it is a positive thing at the moment. The only negative thing at the moment is there is a bit of a backlog as far as we understand, and they're taking about a month to write back to people, which of course is not ideal when we're a couple of weeks away from mandation, so that you've got a whole bunch of people waiting to know if they're exempt, not knowing if they need to have a digital record from the 6th of April. But I think HMRC are aware that there's that backlog there, and they are, as Craig said last week while we were on panel with him, that is something they're actively trying to clear.
Yeah. And a question here. Now, this is a blast from the past. This is like a great retro question. Some accountants are saying that they plan to put estimated expenses and then just adjust at the end of the year. Is this something that is workable? Now, this is there's lots of permutations of this. There's lots of variants on whether I should put zeros in right the way through. What is the latest on this? I think that they were all keen on that, weren't they, at HMRC?
I was very keen on that. So I was definitely one of the people saying, well, I'm just going to do nil returns. What's the point? Can't see the point. The point is that the quarterly updates are there to illustrate that the digital record is being kept, and the digital record is a legal obligation for your client if they're mandated. So while submitting estimates, etc., you can take a view on it, and yeah, probably HMRC wouldn't know that there's not a proper digital record in the background because you're at least submitting something. What does matter for us as agents is the professional conduct in regards to taxation. Those are the guidelines that our professional bodies publish, and those guidelines quite clearly say that we definitely shouldn't be using nil returns, and we shouldn't be using estimated returns unless there is a really good reason to do that, i.e. you think it's pretty much complete, but you're just really close to the deadline, and you need to take a view on something, then that is okay via PCRT. But there is a professional conduct question in this, and arguably estimated returns fall short of that.
Yeah,
and it is also important to note that it is a legal, like the clients have a legal obligation to keep digital records. I know we talk about the soft landing and there's no penalty points in the first year, but HMRC still has that tool of the potential £3,000 fine for not keeping digital records, which I think is something we quite often see past.
And what's the general take on, I mean, if you submit 4 zeros, that's basically raising a flag and going, I'm not doing any records. If you put in nice, neat, round numbers, and it might be, the same number every month or something, I presume that's going to raise the same flag.
Do you know what? The reality is we don't know what's going to raise flags because nobody's gone live yet. So one would assume that kind of thing might raise flags. What's fun with that kind of thing is there are going to be genuine situations where a nil return is actually the correct position and where round numbers is genuinely the correct position. I had a self-assessment inquiry this year where they told me that it was picked up because there was a round number of income, and that was the correct position, and the inquiry was closed. So it does flag, evidently, that kind of thing, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. So yeah, who knows? We'll see when we go live. Unfortunately, those are the questions we can't answer until we start seeing inquiries.
Yeah, and we will be on hand to report on what's kind of going on.
Can I add one on there, Andy, about the estimations as well? I appreciate I was playing a how long can I stay silent challenge on our front.
Yeah, you've been very quiet. I thought you'd gone home.
But yeah, I always think that that the thing with the estimations is that all you're doing is causing yourself a larger headache at the end, as well as that. So getting the right information in the correct quarters makes the finalization process easier for you as well. So as much as you should be putting the correct information on there, I think just putting estimations on there and not putting the right time at the outset just causes problems for you later on down the line, and getting your clients into bad habits that you don't want them getting into. That would be my take on that one.
Well, let's now you've stepped up, Nick. Now you've shown up for the session. This is one, I think, Sandra's question, which you've seen in there. This flags up something that you've been looking into lately. If clients do their own returns on quarterly software using QBO or DEX, for example, and then we do the final return, are we still okay to do it on TaxCalc, or does the final one need to be on the same software? Nick, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit here. I'm a little bit frustrated with how there are a number of bookkeeping providers, not all of them, I will say, that are actively telling their customers incorrect information. They're saying that you should be doing the final submission, i.e. the fifth submission, in the same software that you do the 4 quarterly returns, and that is complete nonsense. Okay, you can do if you want to, if that's the process that suits you and your client's benefit, but there is no requirement to make the final submission in the same software that you do the 4 quarterly submissions. It's going to be very common for say Robin and Tom that their clients may use Xero, QuickBooks, or Free Agent to do the quarterly submissions, but then use TaxCalc as their consistent year-end finalization tool. So the idea is it submits all the information through from a variety of products, whether it be QuickBooks, Xero, Free Agent, Hammock, PATMA, TaxCalc's bridging solution, up to HMRC, and then it pulls it through in a consistent location back down to TaxCalc or any other finalization tool to make that submission. But by using different products, you'll find yourself having to know what different products can do, whether they have the full functionality for that client record. You'll have to learn 4 or 5 different finalization processes. You'll be unable to report across different tools as well as you can do now in TaxCalc. Now, any TaxCalc user who's attended any of these webinars before will be aware of a report that you can run in TaxCalc that just tells you which clients are going to be caught up in the first round of MTD. Now, if you start segmenting your clients into different products, that type of report is impossible to run. So, what I would say is, feel free to do it in a way which suits you and your clients. But I think that just sometimes following the blind recommendation of other providers is putting yourself in a dangerous situation. So yeah, I think that's where having the community that Tom and Robin have built, where they share open and honest opinions of what processes are right for the firms, is very, very powerful.
Yeah, would it be worth explaining about how where that data goes? So once you do those submissions, that's not going straight into the software, is it?
Yeah, correct. So you would make the quarterly submissions, and I'm sure I'll take you through a bridging solution at some point in the next half an hour. But you make the submission up to HMRC on a quarterly basis through whatever software that you're using for that submission. Those ones I referenced earlier, and you keep making those for the 4th quarter. And as soon as that 4th quarter goes live to HMRC, you'll be able to pull that through into TaxCalc. Now, some softwares, such as say the likes of Sage, Free Agent, Xero, QuickBooks, you will be able to make the final submission through those products. I've explained reasons why I probably wouldn't recommend you do that en masse for your clients, but there are some products, the likes of Hammock, where you cannot make the final declaration within that product. So you would have to use a different product to make that final declaration anyway. So yeah, have a bit of a wider understanding of the final declaration process, I would suggest. I know that's not something that is really relevant right now for a lot of people, but I think planning out that route for that final declaration is really important, so you don't end up backing yourself down a corner that you don't want to be down.
I think it's sort of combined. What I've found is that people struggle with the concept of what is a quarterly update in its own right. And then once you've got that understanding, that helps you to understand how the final declaration will work. Is it worth me just running through what is a quarterly update? It's one of my favorite bits of it, is the thought that this quarterly update isn't really just one submission, it's the sum of its parts. And that quarterly update can be made up of different types of qualifying income streams. So for example, you will have one qualifying income stream, or your client will, for every self-employment that they have. So if they were submitting various pages of self-employment, different trades, then each one of those trades will be a line into their quarterly update. And they would need to submit something for all of those lines, all of those trades, to fulfill their quarterly update. Their rental income will also, in the UK, will also be one stream of income, and that's whether or not they have 20 UK properties and whether they're jointly owned, solely owned, whatever. Any UK property is going to be one stream into that quarterly update. So if they have that, they need to fulfill submitting something for that stream to fulfill their quarterly update. And then also any foreign rental properties and income would be another stream. And again, that's one stream regardless of how many properties you have, although that stream in itself could be made up of lots of different individual properties throughout the world. So to be able to submit your quarterly update in its entirety, you need to hit all of the income streams that flow into it. If you miss one of those income streams, then you have not completed your quarterly update. And even if you've done 9 out of 10 of them, say for somebody that has lots of complicated stuff going on, lots of trades, then you've missed your quarterly update. And that also helps us to understand that you could use different software for each one of those streams. In fact, you could technically use different software for different rental properties potentially. That's more complex for non-UK properties, but the thing to remember is each one of those streams needs to be hit each quarter, and because they're different streams, you can use different softwares, and between the quarterly updates you could chop and change which softwares you use. And if you get your head around that, it makes it much easier to understand that all of that's going into HMRC, and all we're doing at finalisation for the end of year tax return is pulling all of that back into whichever software you're using at year end, and then you go from there with any adjustments to that information that's already gone in. I find that blows people's head a bit, but it really helps me to understand how this all works.
Very useful. That's very, very handy. And also there is another element of this, which is the certainly with TaxCalc's MTD quarterly filer, you are able to see where the filing status of all of your customers, regardless of whether they've used different software for every single filing, but you can see what they filed and that they're up to date, right?
Yeah, good.
So, okay, I'm going to try and crack through as many of these questions as possible. We've got loads, and there was a few other bits that we wanted to talk about, but we'll do a couple more. So Judy Licorice is saying that she's having difficulty fetching quarterly update data. The MTD helpline say that you cannot fetch quarterly updates for clients not in the pilot until after April the 6th of April. Is this correct? It's probably one for Nick.
I hope it's not one for me, Andy, because I don't know how to answer that one. Bobby might want to.
Yeah, I don't.
We don't know.
The answer. I think that is a TaxCalc specific question, possibly.
Maybe. Yeah.
Might be something to do with the way that the 25-26 is built rather than 26-27.
Yeah.
So you're trying to pull the data from the quarter updates into a tax return for 25-26. I don't think there's actually that functionality allowable yet, is there?
No. So to be clear, TaxCalc are aiming to have our finalisation example ready to go for our June release. That's what we're aiming for. So you can then pull through the quarterly information for the 25-26 submissions into our MTD tax return function to make that finalisation submission. So yeah, sorry, I probably misunderstood the question. That's not going to be out until June at the earliest, unfortunately.
And that's not a TaxCalc problem. That's universal. Everybody is waiting for HMRC to be ready for the software vendors to then be able to build and finalise their 25-26 tax return product, because everyone will see online that the great success that people have had in the beta testing. They submitted, I think last time I checked, it was less than 20, 24, 25 MTD tax returns. That's actually a separate and different build to what the software vendors have had to create for all of us to do 25-26 MTD tax returns for people in the beta testing. So it's a completely different build, essentially.
So, okay, we have got still 35 questions unanswered. We will try and get to as many of those as possible. It may just be in the chat, but we do wanted to bring up a couple of things. So Nick's going to give us a very quick tour of the MTD filing process and some of the things we're doing about proposals. But there were some issues that you were talking about a list that you discovered.
Yeah, we were. So one thing that has been discovered by some of our accountants therapy members over the last couple of days is this thought that you can use your ASA account and generate a client list. So at the moment, there's no way to go into your ASA account and see a list of your clients that are signed up for MTD. You can't go anywhere, a bit like on your OSA account where you can just go clients and see a whole list of everybody you're authorised with. There isn't that on the ASA as a basic position. There is a workaround to be able to generate a bit of a list. Now, it's not exactly the same as what we see on the OSA account, where it's nice and useful and you can click into the client and go and see all about their affairs, etc. But there is a way of being able to see who has been signed up for MTD, whether that's you that signed them up or whether it's a client that you're authorised with HMRC with that signed themselves up. I'm going to leave it there because if people would like to know how to access that and generate a list like that, then come and join us in Accountants Therapy and we will reveal all.
That's
Sting me.
one of the secrets of Accountants Therapy. The other
It's
rule
a
is
it's a secret, but it's such a cool thing because there's something that we've really managed to do as a group, have this kind of curious attitude towards what's possible with MTD and what does everything mean. And sometimes we do discover things like this. This is not the first time we've been one of the first groups to say this is something different or this is something nobody else is talking about. So I think I'm quite aware I'm kind of gatekeeping that information a little bit at the moment, but it's for the reason that I genuinely think that if you come and join us, you'll see that it's not just that bit of information. There's so much information out there that you can benefit from by joining us. It's £15 to join us. You know, we're not screwing anyone over.
and obviously the second rule of MTD therapy is that no one talks about MTD therapy. There are secret badges and etc. that you can get hold of to demonstrate your affinity with the group. Okay, so we do want to come on to some more questions. I had a question that I wanted to bring up, and I find this is just really frustrating me, and this is something that I raised yesterday on LinkedIn, and it was just I'm hearing lots and lots of adverts for typically software, and what I just don't understand is that they're using the phrase, there's 2 or 3 of them are using the phrase, as of April, you will have to file your taxes online. Now, what I'm interested in is whether, my assumption is, if you are filing your taxes and you've been doing a self-assessment, you're going to think, fine, I already do that. That's no difference. I'm going to walk on. I'm not going to take any more notice. I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to go and ask anyone about it because I do that anyway. So it does seem quite self-defeating. And I don't know whether I'm just missing a point, but I'd be interested to know what you think in the chat and what you guys think about whether or how well this is being communicated. I mean, there's been a letter dropped by HMRC. I know of many people who have simply ignored that.
Or never received it.
Or haven't received it. Yeah. I mean, are they turning up to their accountants? I guess we don't know. If they're not turning up, we can't tell. But it doesn't seem like it's a really tied up solution when it comes to the communication with the clients.
Yeah, that's true. And it's important to remember that for most people that are unrepresented, 212,000, I think quoted earlier, they've been submitting their tax return through the HMRC portal. When you're mandated for MTD, you can no longer use that portal. You have to use MTD recognized software to file your tax return. So they could still do a whole year, not worry about the quarter updates, and then try and submit their tax return when they've caught up. And if they try and use the HMRC portal, they'll be rejected. They've got to have commercial software. So that I think is a bit of misinformation that hasn't been properly portrayed to everyone, that you have to do that. And overall, I think the biggest problem is the communication from HMRC. Last year, they were adamant they'd written to so many 100,000 taxpayers, and we all in the community of MTD therapy were saying, well, none of my clients have had it. We had people who are in MTD, in beta testing, they still hadn't had the letter. It was quite incredible, really.
It's exactly that. I had 1 or 2 tell me about a letter they'd received, and these are people that are telling me about every single tax code that comes through. The people that will tell me every time something comes up. So definitely some of those letters weren't received. For sure, in January, we are going to see, I think, as an agent community, people knocking at the doors, realizing that they can't use Government Gateway because of this kind of messaging. When people read, use digital software to submit your tax return to them, that includes the government gateway. So that messaging is dangerous, I would go as far as saying.
Yeah. But it does underline that, you know, if you are out there and you're sitting on a bunch of clients and you've not yet communicated with them, if you've not sent your own email out to them, there's a reasonable chance that they're not going to know and they're not going to be in any way ready, because no one else is doing that either. And if the advertisement that I'm hearing is common, then that's not describing it in a correct way either.
Also, I've taken on a few clients that have come to me because of NTD, and they've all signed up for software because they were told you need to have bookkeeping software to be doing MTD. And I've had 3 cases where someone has had a really incredible spreadsheet. They've been filing VAT returns through bridging software. And then when I explained to them, actually, you can still bridge through MTD. You don't need to have this software. They were gobsmacked, really, because they thought they had to have proper bookkeeping software and were paying 30, 40, 50 pounds a month just to get MTD ready. And then when I showed them what they could do with bridging, suddenly the price is acceptable. They're not changing really their processes, and they're just going to submit their VAT, and then bang, they do their quarterly update, and they were fine.
Absolutely. So good segue. Nick, would you like to quickly share with us the joys of how to bridge and the pricing? I think we were going to talk about the pricing and the packaging as well, because that's an area that a lot of people are still somewhat struggling with. So do you want to do the bridging first?
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say is, Robin and Tom, please do feel free to jump in and ask as I go, mention any points as I go through this, because I appreciate I do this day in, day out, and maybe something I may have particularly missed if you think it's relevant for everyone on the call. So if I share my screen here, what I want to just focus on is the first bit, which is effectively that TaxCalc have provided an MTD for Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so if a lot of people are struggling with, I don't know where to go where to start with this, if it has to be a particular Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't. It can be any template you like. That was one of the questions we had in the chat earlier on. You can design your own template, but fundamentally, what HMRC want to have submitted to them is either a full breakdown of the category HMRC want if your turnover is going to be over £90,000 in a year, or the submission, the basic information regarding summer income and summer expenses for but similar to the short form or full form for your SA100s that you have now for your self-employment income. Now, what TaxCalc have provided with this spreadsheet is then the backing information regarding the sales and purchases transactions. I would recommend using this one just because it gets to be more consistent for as many of your clients as possible, but you can remove the TaxCalc branding and put your own practice branding on it if you wanted to. We are okay with that. We're not going to get upset with you for changing a template spreadsheet and sending it out as your own. But behind this information, we have the sales and purchases transactions. So if I go to my purchases, you can see that this information is related to some information regarding January 2025, but I may have to make sure that I pick the correct quarterly filing analysis so that this information for the total figures does appear on the lead sheet here. So it's really important that these formulas don't get broken, and the TaxCalc template has actually locked them down, so you can't edit them. They are a protected sheet. Particularly helpful if you're sending this document out to a client for them to detail their own information on their spreadsheet. They're not going to break it. Okay. Now, as we've talked about, the information that will be on these spreadsheets is cumulative data. So the fourth submission that you're making for Q4 would actually hold the full year-to-date transaction list. It's very different than a VAT submission, which would be just information regarding to that particular quarter. This would hold the entire year's transactions on it. I can see Anna's asked a question there saying, where will we find the spreadsheet? If you were to Google and TaxCalc's MTD for its spreadsheet, there will be a link to our knowledge base to go and download them. Okay, I can put it in the chat, or maybe Andy or Tom can go and find that to put the link in there for you. But yeah, the spreadsheet, it's in there ready to go. Now, when you've got that, I'm just going to close that spreadsheet down and open up my TaxCalc screen here. I can then go to my MTD quarterly filer product, this green button on the home screen. So if I open up MTD quarterly filer, I have a list of all my clients in the system, and the one which I'm going to use today is Ian Simpson. Double click on Ian Simpson, and you can see I've got my tax year ending 5th of April 2026. I can double click on that, and it will take me into the MTD quarterly filer product within TaxCalc. Now, the first thing we get actually is on the left-hand side by this taskbar, which is consistent with the rest of our products within the system, is a nice video that lasts for about 2.5 minutes. So if you forget how to do this, how to do this process, this 2.5 minute video should run you through it. Now, Robin was able to make a submission through this without watching the video, which she was very, very proud of, and loves
I
to
felt
tell
very strongly about that, because
Yeah.
good software should not need you to watch hundreds of hours or any instruction, in my opinion. And it was good. I didn't need it.
Yeah, it is. I would say it's particularly helpful for if you've got staff members who haven't really engaged in any of these types of conversations or filing their first MTD submission. If you just watch it, it will guide them through it, right? If they do want a bit of supervision, so that's helpful there. In the business information on the left-hand side, it will have multiple swim lanes for the different types of, whether it be sole trades or property or foreign properties that you need to make submissions for, and you would need to link those businesses that have been set up in TaxCalc with HMRC. And it's a case of just clicking link business in the top here. Within there, you would then be able to make a decision for each trade, whether you are doing a calendar or tax period. It's called standard period, calendar or standard period, depending on your on the type of submission that you're submitting. So that was a question in the chat earlier. Can you do both calendar and standard submissions in TaxCalc Bridging Solution? Yes, you make a decision, and it is then consistent for the rest of the period. You can't switch between them once you made a decision for a particular trade. It is stuck like that for the rest of the 4 quarters. You can choose to have a particular client, one trade on calendar, one on standard, but I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, make it easy for yourself and easy for your clients. After that, you've got quarterly statuses on the left-hand side, and this will tell me for my 2 trades for Ian Simpson Motors and UK property income, whether I have made a submission for each quarter. We see that for the first quarter for both trades, their marks is fulfilled, but the next 2 are overdue. Okay, so currently in the soft landing period, that wouldn't be an issue. It may be an issue in 12, 18 months, 2 years time if we're overdue on those submissions. So it's a case of then going to data submissions on the left-hand side. I'm going to delete the one I did at the top there the other day. I can click create new update in the top left-hand corner. By doing that, it will then ask me, am I making a summarized data submission or a detailed breakdown submission? So this is where it's relating to the turnover over or below £90,000. So I appreciate it might be sometimes quite difficult in the first quarter to make a decision on that. If you do choose summarized, you can update it to submit a detailed breakdown later on down the line. It's not good. You're not going to break it. Okay, you can make different submissions. Choose detailed breakdown in this example and click select file, and it will ask me to browse to my folder location, which I've got my TaxCalc MTD template that I'm going to double click on here. It will then upload it. We also have the ability to tick the box to save a copy of the imported spreadsheet within the TaxCalc products. I would recommend you tick that box rather than leaving it blank, just so you can easily access it within the TaxCalc products after the fact. Click next in the bottom right corner, and then it will show you the spreadsheet on screen. So here's my tabs that we showed you earlier on the Excel products. Same for quarterly filing totals, same for sales transactions, same for purchase transactions. Now, because of the screen I'm demonstrating on today, it's not going to show the columns particularly well. So it's a case of, I can see I've got my summary income sections that we saw before, same for all the different categories. Now the figures are actually one column across here, in column B, so I can then flip between them. So it's a case of mapping across for the first time the relevant income. So I've got turnover, I can click on it on the right hand side. These are HMRC required fields to the detailed breakdown. I've got turnover, I can drop it on 1,100. I've got other, I can drop it on 400 here. Same for the expenses. I know that I've got cost of goods bought for resale or goods used. I can then drag and drop that onto here, and I can then go and drag and drop more. Now, that's the process for the first quarter. Because for a client, the expectation is that for Q2, Q3, and Q4, you're going to be using the same spreadsheets for each submission, because it's cumulative data. So what we would recommend you do is, once you're happy with the mapping, you click Save Mapping up here. So it saves that setting for the drag and drops for the future one. So I'm able to actually now, for the second quarter, say I want to use my TaxCalc MTD template mapping to pull through and automatically map the boxes from where I did on Q1. Yep. So you're not going to have to manually go and check, drag and drop every single time if you save the mapping, and it should save you quite a bit of time on that one. You are able to add additional disallowables as a percentage or as a figure. Yep, here on the right hand side, and it will maintain that for the future quarters as a percentage as well. Once you're happy with all the information, looks like I'm not doing any tax taken off for trading, so I'm going to remove that. It's a case of clicking Save and Next in the bottom right corner. I can choose to save the new mapping, or I can cancel it. Like I said, it will save at this point in time. I'm not that bothered, so I'm going to cancel it in this one because I don't want to save it afterwards. Oh, it will actually ask me to do that. Okay. That's new. And click continue. And it will then give me a year-to-date summary reports for income and expenses with an existing year-to-date adjusted loss there effectively. And then in the bottom right corner, the big one where all these providers say it's just a click of a button. It absolutely is a click of a button when you get to this screen. Okay, so in the bottom right corner, submit to HMRC, and then you can that will then go for that quarterly update. It's then a case of the next 3 months. Wait for the next one to come in, do the next upload, use the mapping document, and submit it. Okay, so yeah, this is all recorded. We have lots of demonstrations on the TaxCalc website to show this as well. But if anyone has any questions about the submission, feel free to do it. Now, very quickly, for anyone who's an existing Engager user or is interested in how the pricing function within Engager works, what I do have is the ability to show you how you can add an MTD for its service. So you may have a client that already exists. Function can effectively do. It allows you to then go and add additional services for what you're offering. So it looks like currently for Adam Alpha, we offer an SA100 service that we're going to charge at £280, but we need to turn on an MTD for its service for Adam. And as I press play, it will then ask me a set of 4 questions that I've devised in my calculation, such as what's the record type? We can say they're on free agent, let's say. Record quality is going to be quite good. Income sources, you can add whatever option you want here. If we say they've got 2 income sources and the client does not do their own bookkeeping, the system suggests it's going to be £122 per quarter for that particular client and an annual fee of £488. If I said they only had 1 income source and they do their own bookkeeping, that is going to come out in this example at a £50 suggested fee because of how the calculation works within there. That could then be automatically go and added onto their engagement letter to send out for approval to add on the MTD service for that client record. So I appreciate I've done a very quick run through of Engage from a pricing perspective and talk about the engagement letter. So feel free to pop any questions into the chat or the question box or contact us afterwards if you want any more information on this. But yeah, it's worth noting that for any Engager user, it's worthwhile building the pricing structure within the metrics to be able to add it to onto your engagement letter to send out for approval.
Isn't that just dreamy? And I think it'd be hard pushed to find a better. It's really quite slick, and it does indicate to a lot of people that probably the one challenge that I'm hearing about, and is replicated in our poll, was that the pricing bit is still one of the areas where people are most challenged on how they're going to price this, how they're going to package that. I mean, are you guys finding that in your discussions?
Yeah, it's a key topic all of the time, and I think we did a MTD together session on it last week, and we were just saying confidence is key here. Don't undervalue yourselves. Like, it's really important we all remember how much work goes into what we're doing. You know, attending this webinar now, clients aren't going to pay us for it. Making sure the letters of engagement are right, registering them, spending the time getting them set up with the software or bridging solution. It's all a lot of time that we as agents are going to spend, and we deserve to get paid for it, because I'm fairly confident if I asked my builder to come and, you know, fit a kitchen, and then I said, look, there's this new rule, I need my bathroom doing, he would want to charge me for it. So we need to have the same.
Absolutely. I have, and some of you eagle-eyed viewers have noticed, I put up another poll live while Nick was talking, which is if you do want any follow-up. So if you would like to find out more about our bridging software, our quarterly filing, our general tax and account software. If you want to find out how to join Robin and Tom's MTD therapy group, you can indicate that in that poll so that you'll be able, we'll come back to you appropriately. There is another option as well. So one of the one thing you may not be aware of, and Tom, I know, and also Robin are using this with their clients, is that rather than doing the filings, they're literally going to be handing that obligation over to the clients for the quarterly filing. So we have a solution. It's the individual product for MTD quarterly filing. It's exactly the same, but they can buy a license and use that themselves, so you don't have to take that on. Robin, you're using that. What's the reaction been when you've brought that up with clients?
Well, I'm really happy to be able to use that because, of course, I'm testing the filer myself, so I can see how it works. I know that it works. I know how it works, and therefore being able to say to my client, look, this is the same thing that I use, just I want you to use it. It's really nice feature to be able to have. How has it gone down? Well, obviously none of my clients are reading anything that I send them at the moment. My clients are just the same as everybody else's. However, I've been offering that in June time, I'm going to contact them and say that I'm happy to shadow them doing their first submission. So I'm anticipating that June time, so in July, that I'm going to show them how to download it and how to drag and drop, etc. But at least that means that I'm showing them something I already know how to do, or something I've already seen happen. And I'm feeling pretty confident about that approach. I've said it lots of times before that part of that approach for me is that people can try it themselves, then they can realize how much time it takes and how annoying it is to have to remember something every quarter. And then they go, do you know what, Robin, actually, you are worth money to do this, so I will pay for you to do it, rather than just hard selling them straight away. I think at least they'll have the experience and realize that they don't want to do it.
They do have that option. And if you do go into the poll, we can send you a template email, which you can send to your client to say, hey, do you want to do it this way, or would you rather me do it? So you can have that link to where they can go and buy that product should they want to. There's so many questions, we have run out of time, unfortunately. I don't think we can do more. We are going to be back in a couple of months' time, or in June. We're going to be doing a record breaking session. We hope to break the record of the number of MTD questions answered in a single hour. I think the record is 106. We're going to do more. And I believe we've got Craig and Sam in line for that, and Nick from Brighton Tax as well.
Yeah.
I think
we've done about 106 today, so I think we'll have to do 108 for June.
Easily. This is no problem. So I am going to draw a line, because people need to go and pick up their kids, and we've taken up a good hour of time. I want to thank you all genuinely from the bottom of my heart. I love you guys, and what you do is fantastic, and thank you for spending your time with us. Thanks everyone in the audience. Thanks Nick for your demo as well. We will be at Fusion. We are running our event Fusion in Birmingham on the 15th of April, and we will also obviously be at Accountex, and Tom and Robin are going to be on our stand. Tom and Robin also on our keynote, and they have their own keynote as well. I think day one, 1 p.m. Am I right?
1:20, but we're not supposed to be telling anyone that.
I didn't know that.
Oh well,
You heard it here first.
No one talks about MTD therapy. Okay, everyone knows that rule. Exclusive, absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. We will sign off, and we will see you soon. Take care. All the very best. Bye-bye.